Welcome back. Glad to have you here on the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast. We've been covering a lot of great topics this year, and one that I talked about briefly on a live that I did, and a conversation that came up again this past week is why don't we go to the unknown? What is it, the resistance that we're finding navigating ourselves through the unknown and staying in the known? So I bring this question, I bring this challenge up to you because we all face it. I talked with two entrepreneurial women today on a conversation, and we all had this similar experience of going from what we knew to going to the unknown. And oftentimes we think of explorers, perhaps in this regard, literally going into the unknown. But here's the reality: we all face this at some point in our lives, and we have a choice to make whether we want to embrace going to the unknown, or do we stay in the known. And oftentimes, I'm going to dig into this in the episode. Oftentimes, staying in the known really limits our ability to expand and to grow. And what I found is if we understand and know ourselves better, our tendencies, if you will, to when these resistance comes up, we can actually take action that gets us what we really want. Um, in the giant world, there's a tool we actually use called Know Yourself to Lead Yourself, which is the theme of this podcast. There's a specific tool that we use. And for those of you that listen to this episode, if you want to visit me on YouTube, I'm going to actually show a clip of that as well, a little screenshot so you can follow along and look at that as we go through this episode. Uh, and so, with that said, how many of you face that? How many of you face a decision of, I know this, but I don't know what I don't know. And here's the reality is, uh, life is filled with unknowns, right? It could be our personal life, our career, technology. We don't know how to handle this, right? Or we're not sure where to go. And so we often are resistant to stepping into the unknown because our brains are wired that way. They're wired in a way to help us reduce risk, help us to avoid pain, expanding extra energy there. And those aren't bad in and of themselves. However, it's really important to recognize the limiting beliefs, mindset, fixed mindset there, and how that affects us in our journey here on earth, our life journey, right? And so I'm just going to start tonight with this idea of looking inward, right? Looking inward to yourself. What is it about you that some of the challenges you might face when going into the unknown? Oftentimes, it's a failure. It's a fear that we're going to fail, that we're not going to be received well when we do this. And honestly, there's some truth in there, right? Because it's unknown. How many of you, when you first started to ride a bike, right? I didn't want to ride a bike because I didn't know how I was going to ride it. I was going to crash. I didn't know how to handle it, right? And so internally, there was potentially fear there. And I mean, not everybody has this, but there's this lack of self confidence. Sometimes those, for those that have to achieve success in your career, you might even have some kind of imposter syndrome, like, who am I to do this? That's what kept me, honestly, for some time, starting Steward Your Business. I had an inkling to start this company and even get to this podcast, to be honest with you, years in the making. And I was delayed because I had internal challenges that I had to overcome in order to actually get there, to create this. And think about all that. Think about if we didn't lean into the unknown, what we would miss out. You guys wouldn't be listening to this podcast. I wouldn't have created Steward Your Business. I wouldn't have moved from Orange County to Running Springs, where I live now. There's a lot of things because I wasn't sure what that was all going to look like. But I leaned into the unknown because I believed that there was a greater opportunity there. And so just wanting to delve deeper into this with you. as we go through the podcast. So think about this. Mindfulness is huge. And so in the Know Yourself to Lead Yourself tool, I'm going to show that to you. If those of you that want to watch on YouTube, please do. But I'm just going to talk through it. There's an infinity loop, if you will. So think about an infinity loop, and we start. I'm going to just start with you guys with tendencies. We all have tendencies, and they are patterns of behavior, right? If we are not aware of those things, we are living life by default. We're not being mindful or practicing self awareness, right? So, when we practice self awareness, when we notice these tendencies of resistance to the unknown, it's going to lead to actions, right? So, for example, if I'll give you an example of internal challenge. Well, I was challenged by my wife at one point to say, "Hey, let's look at moving." And I came up and threw up all these different roadblocks. So my actions were limiting. My response was negative. The consequences were it created a divide between my wife and I because we wouldn't have a deeper conversation. You may have this with a coworker or a colleague. They may be advocating a certain thing, and you're saying, no, no, no. Internally, you're like, I don't see that happening. I don't have the confidence of that happening. And so there's consequences there for you and other parties, right? And as you go through this infinity loop, think about this. You have a tendency, a behavior pattern that leads to your actions. So in this case, my action was being negative or, you know, uh, turning down what my wife had to say, not listening. So therefore, that created a divide. And the reality was, it didn't get either of us really what we wanted. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not the way I want to be. And so, in the intelligent human leadership, I'm all about giving you resources and insights in order to overcome limiting beliefs, ways of being. That's one of the main things I tackle in the first part of the Steward Yourself program is mindset, way of being, and so that we can get better at learning who you are to lead yourself well, and of course your team. That's the whole premise of the podcast here, and my coaching and consulting program. Here it is, though. So, want you guys to think about this as you're listening to the podcast. What are your tendencies? Most people don't categorize these, they don't identify them. And there's a lot of power in identifying tendencies. We have tons of tendencies. Um, and oftentimes we just let them have their way with us. And so this is going to lead you to stopping from going into the unknown, which actually may be much better for you than staying in the known where you're at today. So here is an important part of where you do this, you can build resilience and adaptability in your skills. One of the tools that I use is the stack. You guys have heard me do that. That's through the Warrior program. Again, I curate all these tools for you because I know it's a lot when you're listening to me on here on the podcast. But the reality is, if we don't do this, think about all the opportunities we're missing out on. And just think about this in your life. It could be, I don't know about asking that person out on a date. I don't know about taking on this project or new responsibility. And I'm not saying don't process those things. Just look at your tendencies internally that are limiting you or telling you certain things. Are they getting you what you want? You can reverse engineer this if you want. Look at the reality of your life. Look at the fruit of your life. Are you getting what you want? Are you clearly getting what you want? And if you're not, I want you to think about this, and we're going to dive a little deeper here in a couple elements of this, but start internally and look at this in yourself so that you can actually build resilience, not resistance. We want to overcome the resistance to then apply your mindfulness and self-aware practices, knowing your tendencies, knowing your behaviors, your patterns, so that you can actually take actions that help you overcome the resistance to going into the unknown. So as we go through this internally, and there's a lot more we can go in there, I want to look externally too in this. There are things outside of ourselves. So we start internally, but think about externally. There's social pressures, there's expectations, perhaps. There may be barriers, economic barriers or resource limitations that you might face. However, they can be overcome. Okay. They can be overcome. Now, will they be overcome? That's another question, right? Because our brains, remember how our brains are wired to limit risk, limit exposure, even though it could be better for us, right? So here's an example of an economic uh, or resource limitation. At one point, for me, there was a question I had to ask myself when I came into Warrior Trainer in the fall of 2022. I had a choice to make. Do I invest in this program that I knew could help me and help me that was part of what helped me build Steward Your Business, or do I let that, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get a return on investment exactly. I don't know all the details. However, I believed that going to the unknown was gonna help me. And so I took literally a good portion of my savings and invested this tens of thousands of dollars because it was important for me to do that in order for me to push me, if you will, into the unknown. I wouldn't necessarily have gone there, kind of burn the ships, if you will. You've heard that expression, right? To leave yourself no other option but to go and to move to the unknown in order to be successful. Because sometimes when we give ourselves a tether, when we hold back to these things because of these societal pressures or expectations, that limits us going from the known to the unknown, right? So think about these external factors that come in and how you respond. How do you show up? What is your tendency there? When somebody, for example, you you think, hey, this is might be something good, and you have somebody externally, socially saying, I don't think that's important, or I don't think that's good. And so you let them, their opinion, their presence in your life prevent you from going to the unknown because you're like, yeah, you're right. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You can come up with excuses or reasons when you really know that you should go there. And this is where a place of meditation can also come and help you understand to break through here, to get clarity. Again, the stack tool is so powerful, you guys, as far as breaking down these stories and emotions tied in with them, because it's messy. It's messy. You think about all these things, and that's what keeps us in the known. Even when things are good, um, the known, going into this pit, this gap, if you will. But the gap is really a beautiful thing. This is where we can get through that. We can really see the amazing adventure, if you will, and it is an adventure of what it would be to be on the other side of that, to get on the other side of fear, get on the other side of doubt and worry. And so how can you navigate some of these external challenges? Well, that's part of steward your business. That's part of steward yourself. That's one of the solutions that I have. I can't solve all your problems here on the podcast. Don't get me wrong. I want to give you guys some insights and help here and perspective. But the reality is, I can delve deeper in using these tools. And when you invest in yourself, and go back and check the podcast on investing in yourself if you missed that one, but when you do this investment in yourself, it does help propel you forward. And I will say, the more money and time you invest, intentionally and willfully, you're like, man, I want to get to this place. I want to move from the known to the unknown. What could be, what's the possibility? That's what we want to get to you through. And so, we're following these principles. We can get you to what can be, what is an amazing opportunity. And this is where I feel like, entrepreneurs, and we need more of you. If you're not an entrepreneur, we need more of you, or entrepreneurs too. Those are inside of a company, but to see the possibility of what could be, to innovate, to come up with alternative ways of doing things that we could never have imagined before. We need the creative voices, if you will, out of the five voices. We need those voices to come forward and to lean into this. Because if we don't have that, think about the status of our world. If everyone stays in the known, we are much worse off than if we would have people that would be willing to step in the gap, go to the unknown, and create that space. That is an amazing thing. You think about Tesla, for example, all the unknown things that they've done in creating these electric cars, creating these SpaceX things, all of these things that we're like, man, we couldn't imagine those otherwise, right? So looking at your tendencies, looking at your patterns, learning how to lead yourself well, and and recognizing the consequences that come from that. Consequences aren't always a bad thing. Sometimes we take consequences and we think we're bad. Consequences are just a reality that comes that leads into your reality. It's the fruit, if you will, from our actions. And so when we're thinking about this, um, there are these external challenges and ways that we can do this. I mentioned a couple ways that you can work through them. I'm highlighting the tool here for those you watch on YouTube. You can actually see this little diagram of uh, the Know Yourself to Lead Yourself tool, but understanding our tendencies, understanding our external factors that are facing us. We oftentimes um, will present a certain behavior style because that's being exerted upon us, our environment, although it's not what I'd call our preferred behavior style. Meaning, who do we really want to be? Where do we really want to go? Because we allow these external factors to come down on us. And how many of you guys have heard people that said, they were poor, they came from a bad family. However, they were able to move out of that environment, out of that negative place, become successful in their careers, in their families, because they moved from what they knew to what was unknown to them, but they believed they saw how it could be and they moved past that and they were able to have a much richer life for it. That's what I really want for all of you that listen to this podcast. I want you to have a richer life. If many of you are in a good place, not necessarily it's not terrible, it's not bad, but to move from good to great to amazing, right? This is the journey that I want to help and propel you along. So one of the ways we can do that is through the tools I've mentioned, looking for support systems, having a mentor, or being in a peer group, right? Of course, there's financial support out there or finding programs or resources. Again, that's one of the things I'm helpful. I do that all the time. Help in a consultant way. I will help small business owners and their teams. We look at ways that we can help their team internally overcome some of these external challenges to going to the unknown, right? And so one other big one is what are the philosophical dilemmas that we face into venturing the unknown? What are the ethical implications, if you will, to risk taking? This is important because, again, I've highlighted this through the podcast. If we're not taking this, I believe it. I don't know if it's like completely morally wrong, but I want to put it on your heart. If you're really feeling that calling on your heart, and I need to go into this place, and you're not going, you're missing the opportunity to have lasting impact. Oftentimes, you hear about this of people that are going on um, mission trips. They're going on volunteer trips. They're leaving their home for their comfort of their home. They're leaving these places uh, to support and help other people because they see, even though they don't know exactly how to do that, they have a calling on their heart. And think about this: if you don't do this, we're missing somebody to go out there into the unknown. And there's so many great charity groups that go out into the world that do this. One recently that I was shared with me by a colleague, Forrest Walden, was called Never Thirst, that he created a foundation to help give water to the peoples in the world. Now, if he said, "I don't know how to do this. I live from Alabama and I don't know how to create and present this," right? Um, think about that. The impact that would have been lost, right? And so I just want to, think of think and let that sink into you. Um, the balance between our contentment of the known to the pursuit of this new experience. Um, and you'll be much better off. In my personal experience, you will be much better off when you lean into that. When it's not to say the known is bad. I'm just saying I want to give you guys an understanding that when we stay solely in the known, solely in the comfort zone, if you will, we're essentially saying no to expanding in our capacity, our ability to experience the world, which I believe includes our ability to love, to care, to show kindness. And I want to be in a place. at least for me and all that I work with, of it giving you a place to continue to grow and to expand and to have more capacity to show up in the world as the most intelligent human leader, right? You're healthy, you're in a powerful place, able to give more and to grow, expand. And so, again, if we're not doing that, we're letting the external challenges of the world limit us, we're letting societal pressure, we're looking internally, our own limiting beliefs, our imposter syndrome of like, who am I to go do this, right? This is really a loss to the world. Every one of you listening to this podcast, I believe, has been put on your heart. You've been given special gifts and abilities to reach others. And I want to encourage you to step out into the unknown, um, and move toward creating a reality that you truly love and embrace and you really want, getting really clear on that, what that looks like for you. You know, making sure that your tendencies and your patterns don't overtake you, um, but that they're part of your journey. You understand how they help you, right? But they're not limiting you. They're not taking you down. They're actually empowering you to make strong uh, actions. You're understanding your behaviors, you're understanding your patterns. They're always there, but you can make a choice through some of the tools that I mentioned. And again, if they resonate with you, if you guys are hearing this, you're like, I want to know more, David. I'm stuck a little bit here. Reach out to me. I do a free discovery call. I would love to hear from you. And for those of you that are reaching out to me, this is coming out in April 2024. I'm actually giving away a free book called The Communication Code as part of that, which is just another way to learn yourself and how to communicate with others. So those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see the book here. But reach out to me and just say, David, I would love to connect with you and hear more about this. I'm all about bringing value and bringing you victory in your journey to lead yourself, lead your teams. This affects all aspects of your life. And honestly, if you're again feeling that calling and you're not moving, you're missing out. And I don't want you to miss out. I want to give you go deeper with you on actual practical strategies and mental frameworks. We can't get all of it here on the podcast, but I hope that you're hearing some of them that you can overcome and lean into that. There's so many different unknowns that we're going to face in our life. Like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, whether it's our personal life, whether it's in our business, but as you apply this understanding, it works in every aspect of your life. And you'll be better off for it and being able to identify your patterns of behavior, your tendencies, taking it to your actions, going through the consequences, recognizing them, and getting to the reality of what you want. What do you really want? What's on the other side of the unknown? Well, it starts with making a choice in saying, you know what? This is better for me if I move toward this than staying where I'm at today. Let's get you unstuck. Let's get you moving in the direction that truly is on your heart of hearts. And through the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast and through Steward Your Business, that is a way to do it. I invite you to have a conversation. I invite you to connect and learn more. Um, if this is resonating with you, I so appreciate it. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps me get the message out there. I offer this completely free as a way of reaching others and sharing what I've learned and applied it in my own life and continue to apply it in my life. Um, I really do appreciate you guys following along, and I look forward to our next episode. We'll have much more to cover. This is just one of many tools and resources that I'll continue to share with you so that you can be the most intelligent human leader, leading yourself and your teams. I'm David Carr, your host. Appreciating you guys coming back again. And until next time, have an amazing day. Take care.